You know what? We have like a really expensive camera that we never use. We do. Me and my wife.
You mean we? It's now
the podcast.
A property of the pod?
Yes. I'm going to put a sticker on it. I'm like, you haven't used this thing in like a year and a half. So
Prod Pop.
It's mine now.
We haven't used this since our last sex tape.
Why can't I hear myself? Oh, that's what.
Is that on like Pornhub?
What?
Is that on Pornhub?
My sex tape?
Yeah.
No. Do you really want to watch it?
I'd watch it. Why the not?
I got a copy of it in the living room.
Okay.
I feel really weird right now.
I got it on VHS.
There's like
eBay
porn tapes of me out there. It's a very select audience.
Barbarian and the Boo. Where do you think that came from?
Did you do this because I hit the red button? Is that why you did that?
Nobody wants to see that shit. Nobody.
No. Welcome back to another episode of the Salty Nerd Podcast. I am your host, the Salty Nerd. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing movies all about America because it's 4th of July week. So, welcome to the podcast, everybody. I am joined, as always, by my illustrious co-hosts, starting with Matthew Vader, the barbarian himself.
Look at you. You're going backwards.
I'm going backwards, buddy.
That's funny.
Changing it up. What's up, man?
Not too much. How are you?
Good. Also joined by the ambassador of estrogen herself, Juju.
Hello.
How's you doing? How are you doing? I'll leave that in just for you.
I's doing good. How's you doing?
Good. How you doing? And I am also joined by the author extraordinaire, Matthew Kadish. What's up, man?
Happy birthday, America.
Happy birthday, America. Well,
America.
Fuck yeah. Yeah. It's a terrible movie. All right. Before we get started talking about Team America, Independence Day, and Captain America, the First Avenger, real quick, Jude, you have a little speech you want to say.
A little speechy poo.
Little speech.
Yeah, just before we get into the show topics, I just thought I'd talk to the listeners about Patreon. So this is something that we've set up for you so that you can get access to more Salty Nerd content. So there's 5 different levels to choose between, ranging from $5 to $100, just depending on your level of saltiness. And remember, the saltier you are, the more exclusive the content you'll receive. So go to Salty Nerd Club and take a look at our Patreon account. Choose the level that's best for you and become a saltine. And just remember, every new patron gets a sticker and a shout out on the show. That's right. Our undying love.
Yeah, absolutely. That's saltynerdclub.com. You guys can go straight there. Thank you, Jude. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
There's saltines.
The Saltines. I guess that's official now. I can't really think of anything better, so it's perfect. Saltines.
Could just call them the nerds.
The nerds.
I like saltines.
Saltines is funnier, I guess.
I already said it.
It's official.
It's official now.
Matt. By the way, I wanted to say thank you for rewriting the descriptions on our videos because you're such a better writer than me. It's ridiculous.
It's weird. It's uncanny.
I sit there and I'm like, I'm going to really try hard and try to make like a fun little description about this. And I go back and it's completely gone and it's written by him and it's like got all these big words that are all fancy.
It's like he was a trained professional or something, right?
Yeah. I should just leave him blank and just
I know. I feel dumber every time I leave.
You should at least run a spell check.
Oh, shots fired.
I do my best.
You do best, sir. Good job. Thank you. I'm glad to have you on the team. All right, let's get started. We're going to talk about the Team America movie.
Yeah, let's just get it out of the way.
Yeah. I'm just going to start by saying this. My original pick was The Patriot with Mel Gibson. And then because I was thinking about it, and I was like, I remember Team America being really funny. And I think
plus you'd had a lot to drink when we were having this discussion.
And I was like, I'm going to switch it over because, I want to talk about something funny. And I picked Team America, World Police. And I regret that decision with every fiber of my being because I watched both movies. I watched The Patriot. And then immediately afterwards, I watched Team America. And I was like, fuck. That was a bad decision. So Team America, it's a movie all with filmed with complete miniatures and marionette dolls that were used for all the major action scenes and acting and all that stuff. It's
ridiculous.
It's a ridiculous movie created by the guys who made South Park, and it's all about this special ops team of American soldiers who are sent around the world to share the American values with people who don't want them. And it's filled with vulgar humor, terrible stereotypes, and
A kick-ass soundtrack.
a kick-ass soundtrack, but very offensive things. But I mean, that's as per usual for the South Park guys, so kind of fits the bill. But anyway, I remember I watched this movie probably when it first came out, and I remember thinking it was freaking hilarious. I thought it was the funniest movie ever, and it was so...
How old were you in 2004?
I was in high school, so I would have been a young teenager.
So you're perfect age.
Yeah,
Right.
perfect
To think
age
it was funny.
To think it was
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah.
And I watched it just like a couple days ago, and I was like, God, this movie's not funny anymore.
Does not age
They
well.
said the F word.
It's that stupid humor.
They
And
said bulls.
Yeah, and I...
They said Durka.
Durka. It's so...
The foreign languages in this movie were on point.
Durka Muhammad.
Anyway, so...
Jihad Durka.
Muhammad Jihad.
The basic plot is this team loses one of its members in a tragic botched operation, and they have to replace him with an actor from Hollywood who has to go undercover as a foreign terrorist.
No, it wasn't from Hollywood.
He wasn't from Hollywood?
No,
he
he
was
was
from
from
Broadway.
Broadway, that's right. A Broadway actor.
But he was
comes
the
in.
best actor.
Best
ever.
actor ever. Except for Matt Damon. Anyway, so there's just hijinks ensue and craziness happens. And like I said, 3 times I think already, I regret picking this movie. I did not enjoy it at all. I was kind of just rolling my eyes most of the time, just kind of like, oh my God, this is like, have my sensibilities changed? Has the cancel culture offendedness of the world over the last couple of years
I
just
think
kind
you
of
just grew up.
gotten to me? And I'm like, I don't really like this
Well, I
anymore.
think this movie is a direct pushback
To that.
to cancel culture,
Yeah.
which was very much alive and well back then.
You think so?
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. That's the whole
During the Bush
Trey
administration.
Matt Parker and Trey Stone. Is that right?
Matt Stone.
Matt Stone, Trey Parker. I got it backwards. But that's what South Park's been fighting against
Yeah.
since day one. You know, that's their thing. They're there to offend,
Yeah.
but they're equal opportunity offenders,
This is also true.
which is fine. You know,
Yeah, I was watching it and I'm like, I don't really get offended by things, but I just remember watching it and I'm like, wow, that's dirty. It's just like dirty, underhanded jokes at other cultures' expense. But I guess that fits. And, they did the same thing with America, with Hollywood and all that stuff. So, like you said, equal opportunity offenders.
sure.
But anyway, Matthew Kadish, what did you think about this movie?
I love this movie.
I knew he was going to say that.
Well, it's funny because shortly after this movie came out, I became friends with one of Trey Parker's assistants. And so like I had kind of like insight into this movie that made me appreciate it a little bit more than I did when I first saw it in the theater.
Oh, okay.
And like he just told me stories about it. I just thought it was funny. Like for instance, when they were making the movie, so in their South Park movie, which came out before this, they had kind of made fun of the Baldwins
Yeah.
in there. And Alec Baldwin had heard that he was going to be a character in Team America. And if you know anything about Alec Baldwin, he's got a pretty good sense of humor. So he contacted them and he was like, hey, I heard I'm a character in your upcoming movie.
They're probably like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh God.
Yeah. They were like,
Alec Baldwin's going to shut us down.
yeah. Yeah. And so Matt and Trey were like, yeah, you're in our movie.
Is that okay?
And Alec Baldwin was like, well, I really like your stuff. I'd like to play myself in your film. They're like, you want to do your own voice in our movie? And he was like, yeah. They're like, we're going to have to get back to you on that. and so they get together and Alec Baldwin calls him back and is like, so can I voice myself in your film? And he's like, and Trey Parker actually said, actually, we got a guy who does your voice better. So we're going to go with him.
They didn't go with Alec Baldwin?
No.
Oh, wow.
That's funny.
That's hilarious.
But it's kind of funny because the making of this movie,
Well, before we get too deep into that, can we get Jude's opinion on this movie real quick?
Sure.
What did you think about it when you watched it?
While I was before we watched it, I was like, oh God, I'm not looking forward to this. This is just like the kind of humor that I just don't find funny.
Yeah.
But while we were watching it, I actually did laugh while we were watching it, but I think it had more to do with all of the alcohol I consumed before we started watching it.
Definitely helpful.
Yeah. I think that's how you have to go into it. It's just lit.
Yeah. That's it?
That's it.
Okay, cool. I appreciated the movie more after I watched it because I went online and I was like, man, I got to step my game up because Kadish has all this like
I know, he's got his notes again.
So I watched like 3 or 4 different documentaries on the making of.
Wow.
And
Oh,
like,
that's the trick. I got to start doing that kind of
and
stuff.
I was watching.
You don't have time to do that, Vader.
Yeah, they were like an hour each.
It's like I got to go back to work pretty soon.
Anyway, so I was just like, besides the humor, like I'm kind of on the same page as Jude. I was just kind of like, I think I need to be drunk and with other people to really appreciate this movie. I was by myself and sober, and it was just like,
Ugh, that's not how you want to do that.
no. But I watched the behind the scenes stuff and watching these technicians build these miniature sets and working these puppets and just the technology that went into it. I really did appreciate the effort that there was like thousands of people that were trying to make this movie happen, and it's a lot more difficult than they make it seem. Like you think, oh, it's just a couple puppets, you put a camera in front of them and you dance them around and make jokes. Like, no, there's a little bit more involved to it. But
Also, like just from the humor standpoint, if you put aside the kind of South Parky type humor, like the movie's actually a very sophisticated satire. Like there's a lot of satirical elements in it that kind of stand the test of time. Like when we were rewatching it, the whole thing about actors thinking that they know better than you about politics because they read stuff. Yeah. And the whole there are 3 types of people in the world: dicks, pussies, and assholes. Oh yeah, like that was quite relevant.
Yep.
Yep. Very true. Very true.
Yeah. It does have some moments where it's like it speaks to today's like 2020, even though it's how old is this movie? 2004, you said, right? Wow. It still does have some relevant moments where you're watching it and you're like, yeah, man, that's still true today. Even more so, even probably. So I think we need another Team America movie.
Yeah.
Just to set the internet ablaze.
I don't know. As for me, I like the story and I like the humor, but I couldn't get past the look of the puppets. The strings bothered me. All the strings hanging everywhere, and the way they talked was weird.
It's all animatronic.
That was all on purpose.
I know. Yeah. It didn't work for me. It's just I didn't like that gag, that part of the movie, and the way they flopped around when they walked and stuff. It was funny.
That was part of the joke.
Yeah, I know. but again, it didn't quite resonate with me, I guess. And
how about that sex scene?
Oh, the sex scene. That was something. Yeah.
There was some
You got to see some boobs, Vader. Were you excited about that?
There was boobs in the movie.
Boobs, yeah.
Wooden puppet boobs. Like,
Still counts.
Yeah.
There was this old story at Paramount because I used to work at Paramount Studios
back in Hollywood.
Where was this?
Yeah.
Back in Hollywood. Yeah. Where so Paramount was the company that financed and released this, and the very first time that Matt and Trey screened stuff for them. So that very opening shot of the movie where it's like this really crappy puppet with a really bad background, and then it's like slowly pans up and you see like how awesome the miniature sets and stuff are.
In Paris, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they did that specifically to f with the Paramount executives. So they had this first shot, and that's what they showed the Paramount executives. And all the executives were sitting there, and one guy even shouted out, "We paid $32 million for this shit. This looks terrible."
There was a fun fact in one of the behind the scenes things that I was watching is they purposely made every set look like something that an uneducated American would think that country would look like. So like Paris was paved with croissants. If you look at the street, it's just a bunch of croissants laid on top of each other. And that's what they use for like the cobblestone and stuff. And they put the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, is it called the Louvre? I think the little glass pyramid thing. They put that all in like the same courtyard because that's what Americans think. Oh, that's all in the same neighborhood, right? So I just thought it was really funny because it is intelligent satire of like, they are making fun of Americans as well as everybody else. And it was just kind of like, this is what dumb Americans think Paris looks like. And this is what dumb Americans think Saudi Arabia looks like and stuff like that.
And this is how dumb Americans think terrorist talk.
Yeah. Durka.
Muhammad Jihad.
Go ahead.
I think my favorite part of the movie, though, which I did appreciate, was in the end when they were killing off all the celebrities in the most gruesome, grossest possible way that they could come up with for each one of them separately. That was good.
The Matt Damon character, where every time he's on screen, it's just Matt Damon. Well, when they were getting all the puppets from like the puppet makers, they were going through like looking at him, and they came to Matt Damon's puppet, and they're like, this doesn't look like Matt Damon. What is this? And they're like, that's Matt Damon. And they're like, why does he look retarded? And
can't say that.
well, I'm quoting. And Matt and Trey were like, what are we going to do with this puppet? He looks retarded. And Trey Parker was like, well, why don't we just make him retarded? And so like that's where the whole Matt Damon thing came in.
Makes sense. I learned something else when I was watching these documentaries too. You were talking about Alec Baldwin, like finding out that he was going to be a character in the movie and kind of being like, hey, I want in on it. I guess like they didn't get permission to use any of the other They were like, we're just going to put you in the movie and we don't care if you like it or not. So like Ethan Hawke and Helen Hunt and all those characters, like they never asked any permissions to put that.
I don't think they've ever asked, even on South Park.
Yeah, same thing with South Park. They were just like, yeah, you're going to be in it. So.
It's like thing that comes up in front of every I can't talk today. Their thing that comes up in front of every show. Their disclaimer.
Yeah.
Says there are celebrity impersonations done in this show very poorly.
They're covered under parody, right?
Yeah, I think so.
They're protected from that. Well, anyway, I don't know. I appreciate this movie for what it was, and I don't really get offended by offensive movies. It's just kind of, but I didn't laugh as much as I thought I was going to. And I was really bummed out because I watched The Patriot, and I freaking love that movie, dude. I don't know, something about Mel Gibson just going full blood rage, like
you
Revenge
love Mel
Quest.
Gibson
We weren't supposed to watch that movie.
I did watch it because I wanted to. See, that's how that works.
Just for joy.
Because I had a lot of time on my hands. And I was like, man, I really wish we could have watched that together because that would have been more fun to talk about. But anyway, we picked Team America. So
well, I find the story behind the making of this movie to be quite interesting.
Yeah. Do you have some more details about it?
I do, actually.
All right, let's get into it.
Basically, like one Saturday morning, Matt and Trey were like hanging out and watching TV, and they came across like the old TV show Thunderbirds. And if you've never heard of Thunderbirds before, it's basically a children's show done with marionettes, but it was like action adventure. Team would go around fighting bad guys, bad puppets, whatever. Yeah. And
evil puppets.
And I guess they were either high or drunk or something like that, and they were watching this and just cracking up at like how like terrible it was.
Yeah.
And they were like, we need to make a movie with puppets. And so they had this idea where at the time they had gotten their hands on the script for another Roland Emmerich film, speaking of The Patriot and Independence Day. It was a film called The Day After Tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a movie where global warming was the bad guy, basically. And they had gotten their hands on the script, and they're like, what if we did a shot-for-shot remake or, a shot-for-shot parody of The Day After Tomorrow and released it at the same time as this movie comes out, but it's all with puppets.
Can they do that?
Well, apparently the lawyer said no, they can't do that.
Yeah, that seems highly illegal.
So after that idea got shot down, they were like, well, why don't we just, make a puppet movie, but we're going to make a Jerry Bruckheimer puppet movie. And so while they were writing the script, basically they would sit down and they'd be like, okay, what would Jerry Bruckheimer want the characters to say at this moment? What would a Jerry Bruckheimer movie have them do at this moment? So this entire movie is a parody of a Jerry Bruckheimer film. I just thought that was hilarious.
It fits.
Yeah, I mean, like it's so stereotypically a Jerry Bruckheimer movie if you watch it. But they had a lot of like good nods to other movies. Like there were a couple of nods to The Matrix, some Star Wars references.
Yeah, a ton of Star Wars references.
Yeah, very blatant ones too.
Yeah.
Was it Kill Bill? They had a Kill Bill moment in there. Some Tarantino stuff. And I found it interesting because the one time that I did get to meet Matt Stone.
Where was this?
This was at the Santa Monica Film Festival.
Back in Hollywood.
Yeah. And I was chatting with him, and I had just seen Bowling for Columbine, and it was like, for those of you who haven't seen it, Matt Stone has like a little segment in there where he's interviewed by Michael Moore, and then Michael Moore cuts to like some cartoon footage like later on in the movie that looks very much like South Park, but these guys had nothing to do. Like Matt Stone and Trey Parker had nothing to do with it. So Matt Stone didn't like Michael Moore because he basically twisted his words and made.
Does anybody like Michael Moore?
No.
I don't think so.
But also Matt and Trey are like kind of hardcore libertarians, so they just don't like what he stands for to begin with.
Neither do I.
And So I always find it funny that in this movie that Michael Moore basically just becomes a suicide bomber.
Yeah, he turns into a terrorist.
Suicide bombing communist.
Blows up Mount Rushmore.
And they stuffed his puppet full of ham when they blew him up. That's what you see flying everywhere.
That's nasty.
That thing must have stunk.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And but it's kind of funny because when I was hanging out with Trey's assistant, he'd tell me stories about life on the set, and it was a very stressful shoot. Like they shot the movie over the course of 6 months, because on an average day they'd get maybe 6 shots done because of all the logistics of having to work with puppets and stuff like that. It was very laborious. It was very slow going. They were working like 14 to 16 hour days. They had 1 day off in that 6 month time period, and that was on the 4th of July, ironically enough.
Fitting.
Yeah. And my buddy was telling me, it's like, I have a picture of them on set, and you can just see like they're just sitting there like with their faces looking like they just want to die. And in fact, it was so bad that by the end of the shoot, like neither of them ever wanted to make a movie with the other one ever again.
Oh, they were getting in fights with each other?
It wasn't that they were getting in fights; they were just getting sick of each other.
Oh, okay.
They just
too much time together.
Yeah, they were just like like they were blaming each other for having the idea to do this movie. they're like, we don't want to do this anymore. Yeah, so like it was a $32 million movie over the course of 6 months. They were doing 6 shots a day, working 16 to 18 hours a day, and they had 3 different units shooting at the same time. And neither Matt nor Trey actually got to see the full finished movie until it was already out in theaters, because they were working so hard on up to the last minute trying to get these things done.
Yeah, I think it paid off. I mean, the movie's well done on like you said, logistically and with all the props, and they used a lot of forced perspective stuff so that the models would look like they were had some dimension to it. And I think it worked out great. I mean, the movie, for what it's supposed to be, it looks great. And the action is a lot of fun. Having the puppets like bust through walls in Jeeps with the music and all that stuff. Like, it was fantastic.
Can we talk about the music?
Terrifying.
Yes, we can absolutely talk about the music.
That's probably the best part of this movie.
I agree.
Is the soundtrack.
I totally agree. I love the part where they have this like epic, like, the America, fuck, like they have that song playing for like the action scenes. But then
what would you do?
But then they have that same song, but it's written as like a sad
slow ballad.
A slow ballad, and it's the same words, like America, fuck yeah,
lick my ass and suck on my ball.
It's just epic. I think one of the moments that I forgot had happened, they were taking the actor and they were trying to make him look like one of the terrorists. And I forgot about this part. And they were like, it was like almost like a face-off moment where they're like, we're going to surgically remove his, change his skin color and make him look just like one of them. And he gets up and he's just got a bunch of patchy freaking pieces of hair and some bad dye on his skin.
That reminded me of when they wanted to make Butters look like a dog.
Yeah.
Take him to the vet. Is that part? Because he had throwing stars stuck in his eyeball.
I like the very first musical number we get is a Broadway show called Lease, where everyone has AIDS.
Oh yeah,
the song's
AIDS.
AIDS.
Which was a bigger thing in 2004 than it is now.
Yeah,
sure. It was a takeoff on Rent.
Yeah,
It was like basically all about people who have AIDS.
God, this movie. I don't know. What do you think if they were to make a part 2 and release it in 2020 or 2021? What do you think the public reception would be?
Firebombs?
They should do like they should have a little Rocket Man, Kim Jong-un, and Trump. Yeah, it'd be great.
It is funny that watching this and it's like, oh, I remember Kim Jong-il.
Yeah.
Now it's Kim Jong-un.
Is it now? I think he's dead. That's the theory.
Do you think his sister's in charge?
Yeah, seems like it.
And just the stereotype of him is so good. You fucking guys. I can't even do it right now. Hello. How are you doing?
Can you imagine a puppet Trump doing just all the dumb, like stereotypical Trump things that everybody hates?
Maybe they could get Alec Baldwin to come voice it.
They'd have to have an Elon Musk puppet too.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yes. I think he would be on the side of Team America.
Jack Dorsey puppet.
We have Elisa Milano being one of the actors.
She's the president.
Yeah. The president of FAG.
That was such a funny little like gag.
Oh yeah,
the Film Actors
Guild.
Their initials.
And that was another thing that I think we mentioned it already. That was like very timely today with all these like actors with their like, I take responsibility and singing Imagine to people. It's like, shut up.
But I mean, it is funny where it's like, I play a president on TV, therefore I know stuff about politics, so you have to listen to me.
Yeah. My opinion matters more.
It's kind of like taking medical advice from a guy who plays a doctor in a movie.
I never understood why people care about what any of these people have to say.
You remember that whole song that they had in this movie about how bad of an actor Ben Affleck is?
In this movie?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed it.
You missed it. It was when he was it was right after he had thrown up and hit rock bottom, and he was driving back to Mount Rushmore, and it was just a song about like the movie Pearl Harbor and how bad Ben Affleck was in it.
I like that movie.
It was like Ben Affleck needed an acting coach.
Everybody needs an acting coach.
That's not true.
All right.
Who's your acting coach, voice actor?
Watching YouTube videos of better voice actors.
Oh, clever boy.
Any other final thoughts on this movie? Favorite moments before we move on to Independence Day?
Oh, I want to talk about the puppet sex scene real quick.
Oh, okay. More detailed discussion about the puppet sex scene?
This episode will be NC-17.
So,
what was your favorite puppet
Not
position?
joking, was that so Matt and Trey were so worried about, all the other stuff they had going on in this movie that they specifically made the puppet sex scene as like terribly raunchy as possible because they wanted the MPAA to focus on that while they were doing the ratings. And so the MPAA came back with an NC-17 rating for the puppet sex scene alone. And so they had to resubmit it like 10 times before they were able to cut it down enough to get an R rating for the movie.
So there's a dirtier version of the puppet scene?
Yes.
Wow.
Man, Vader's head just exploded.
Yeah. And it's funny.
Had she been a red-headed puppet, Vader would have died.
And it is funny because like in the sex scene, like they're doing like every porno position you can think of.
Sure.
Like it.
It's like motorboating her.
Yeah. Amongst other things.
Yeah.
It's like really graphic. But it's funny because like when you're watching it, you're just like, they're literally puppets.
Yeah.
They have no genitalia whatsoever.
No.
The guy doesn't even have any either.
Yeah.
No, it's like Ken and Barbie dolls.
Yeah. And it's like, really? Like that's something.
She's got nipples, though.
But it's kind of like all the violence and sex in this movie, it's with puppets.
Yeah.
It's not actual human beings. So like, why is this such...
Yeah, because you can't show this to a 10-year-old.
Yeah, graphic nature.
Yeah, this
Mommy,
is true.
Daddy, why is that puppet turning that other one upside down?
Yeah, you don't want them doing this with their toys.
But it's funny because outside of America, this was marketed as a family film.
Are you serious?
Yeah. They're like, it's
Those
puppets.
crazy
it's for the whole family.
Europeans.
Oh my God.
That's amazing. Even in China, because China's like super.
I don't think China's box office was open at this time.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure, but I doubt it. I know that there was like one country where it was banned from being shown.
That makes sense.
Because of its portrayal of Kim Jong-il or something.
Oh, that makes total sense now.
The French were like, this is nothing. We do this at brunch.
Why is that a French vampire?
Yeah, using your nodule.
One sex scene. That's the only accent I do.
Yeah.
It was
You
witches.
do it well, though.
Thanks.
You do it well.
It was witches.
Witches.
So gross.
But I think my
Very
favorite
gross.
I think my favorite scene in the film was the Kill Bill moment at the end where the puppets are just walking down the hall and then they run into all the actors and they're going to fight.
They cut Helen Hunt in half.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It had some good moments. It really did. It just didn't. I don't know. It didn't strike me as funny as I remember it being. Which again, Matt Vader pointed out very well that I was like 14 when this movie came out, so I was like the perfect age to think it was hilarious. Now I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's all right. But all right. Well, that's our discussion on Team America.
Screw you, Hans Blix.
Before we move on,
Jude was like, is that a puppet shark in there or is that like something real?
Yeah, I was like, do you think that shark was real or do you think the shark was a puppet too?
Oh, I did like the black cats as the Panthers. That was cute.
I said that. I was like, the giant cats were hilarious.
I did not catch that. I guess I missed it.
All right, before we move on, I'd like to remind our listeners that you guys can support the podcast. Go to saltynerdvideo.com. That takes you straight to our YouTube channel. You can like and subscribe. We have all of our content there, and we also split it up into nice little digestible segments for you so that you don't have to listen to a 2-hour podcast. You can listen to one segment about a particular subject that you want to hear about, one movie that we talk about. It's all right there. Please subscribe, like the videos, and comment, and we can get back to you, and we'd love to hear from you. All right, so who picked Independence Day? Which one of you guys wanted? Jude! Tell us about Independence Day and why did you pick it?
Because it's a guilty pleasure. Because you said I had to pick something patriotic, and it's on the 4th of July. And I love it when Will Smith goes, I caught a bit at a barbecue.
There's nothing guilty about this. This is a good ass movie.
I love this movie. Aliens? Fucking aliens?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Tell me about this movie.
Independence Day came out in 1996.
Wow, really?
Directed by Roland Emmerich. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Okay. Starring Jeff Goldblum, Bill Pullman, and Will Smith. And back when Harry Connick Jr. did movies, Harry Connick Jr.'s in this. So it is about, it's July 3rd and aliens invade Earth. And it's up to the president, a scientist, and an airman to save the day. And should they win the day, the 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday, but as the day the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night.
Take it away. Take it away, Jude. Take it away.
We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. And today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
I'm going to tell you
I
what.
love this movie. I love this movie.
I got friggin' emotional during this movie.
Yeah?
And I haven't seen this movie since I've had
Did you
kids.
get goosebumps when I just did the speech?
You did a little bit, yeah. I was tearing up while you were doing it. I haven't had kids since I've seen this movie. Or how do you say that? I
haven't seen this
movie since I've had kids.
Okay.
That's how I say it. Okay, that's the appropriate way of saying it. So I think having kids has made me soft because there were several moments in this movie and I was like, oh my God. And I was like welling up. I'm like, oh my God. And then when he did that speech, I was like, yeah,
get him.
Get him.
That's funny.
It was like, I don't know, man. It just hit me at the right time. I was like really, really enjoying this movie. Way
It's
more
like
than
I remember when I used to watch this movie. I haven't seen this movie in like probably 8-9 years, maybe 10 years.
Yeah.
And that speech used to kind of get to me, right?
Didn't anymore?
It doesn't anymore.
What?
I don't know, man. It's just like
You're cold as ice,
I
Vader.
am. I don't know what if I was like if I was cranky or in a bad mood or something, but I was like, oh yeah, here's the stupid speech. Okay. Oh, go get them.
Show me
Soccer,
some boobs.
get them, guys. You know.
Did any of you guys see this in the theater?
Yeah.
I saw this at the drive-in.
Ooh.
So I remember,
Love drive-ins.
back in '96, I was in high school, and my job, my summer job, was at a movie theater, and we got to screen these movies like the night beforehand, just to make sure that everything was framed properly and the projector was working and stuff. So I got to see this before anyone else in my town did. And I was so high on this movie. Like this movie just blew my fucking mind. That I went to, I would sneak into the movie while I was working, and I'd always try to time it so that I'd come in during that speech. And it never failed. People in the theater would stand up and start cheering after that speech. It's one of the most iconic movie speeches, I think.
Oh, for sure.
In cinema history.
I think it blows Braveheart's speech out of the water.
No.
Yes, it
Get out of
does.
here. You're wrong.
We will not go quietly into the night.
You're wrong.
That is such a hoorah moment.
Shut up, Vader.
Fun fact, the original version of that speech did not have "Today we celebrate our Independence Day" in it.
Because they didn't want to be too American? Is that what?
No, so
Bill Pullman was just feeling it.
I mean, I even wrote that in my notes. I got notes.
You got notes?
I got notes for this.
Oh my God.
I wrote it's like
We're
my
like
seventh one.
professionals now.
It says President's speech did not resonate as well to me. I wrote that down.
That's a big word.
So the story behind that is that at the time that they were making the movie, Warner Brothers actually had the copyright to the title Independence Day.
Oh, that's right.
And Fox was like negotiating with them, but if they couldn't get the rights to it, they had to name the movie something else. Because before the movie came out, it was called ID4,
right? Yeah.
And that was because they were trying to get Independence Day, but they didn't know if they were going to, so they were just using this as like an abbreviation for it.
Today we celebrate Christmas. Doesn't ring.
Just doesn't ring as well.
But the movie was going to be called Doomsday if they couldn't get Independence Day. So they shot that speech with Independence Day in it and without it. And so they were like, we're going to use this in the trailer and stuff like that. But if they couldn't get the title, then they were going to have to cut it out. So I'm glad they were able to come to an agreement.
I love this speech.
It was so great.
It's my second favorite part of the movie.
What's your first favorite part?
I could have been at a barbecue.
Yeah,
I love Welcome to Earth.
Where he punches out the alien.
Yes, that's the American way, sir.
Well, it's funny because Jude's favorite scene where he says, "I could have been at a barbecue." So like he's dragging the alien, across the desert.
Smell?
Through Area 51, the dry lake bed.
Yeah, so they shot that at the Salt Flats near the Great Salt Lake in Utah. And if you don't know anything about the Salt Flats, they have these crustaceans called brine shrimp. Mm-hmm. And what happens is that they'll when they die, they kind of sink to the bottom of the lake, and the lake's not very deep. So when the wind kicks up, you smell all these decaying shrimp, basically. And so no one told Will Smith about this. And so during that scene, he kept getting hit with these awful odors, and
Dead fish.
And he ad-libbed that line where he's like, "Oh, what's that smell?" And it was because there was an actual terrible smell there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's great.
At one point, he the wind just hit him, and he was like, "And what's that smell?" Barbecue. I could have been at a barbecue.
That is fantastic. That's a great moment.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of the dialogue. So all the dialogue with. Not all, but most of the dialogue between Judd Hirsch and Jeff Goldblum is ad-libbed.
That's his father, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the dialogue between Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum in this movie is ad-libbed.
That makes sense. I want to say this, and I might catch some heat for this, but I want to say that this is Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith at their peak.
Oh, I love them.
That their dynamic together was on point.
Well, Goldblum had just come off Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And this was Will Smith's first big budget movie.
Yeah.
Before that, he'd done, I think, an indie film and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And this was the movie that really launched him into A-list status. But it's funny because, do you guys remember a few weeks ago when we were talking about Universal Soldier, and Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich, the directing producer of this movie, had made Universal Soldier. And so when they were going to cast Will Smith's role, they had originally considered Jean-Claude Van Damme for it. So Jean-Claude Van Damme could have been starring in this movie.
Could have been at a barbecue. So you do a French accent.
Yeah, then
We would have had to talk about this last week.
Yeah.
Then he spin kicks the alien.
Yeah, he's been kissed.
So Roland Emmerich, the director, he really wanted the character to be played by an African-American actor. And originally they were going to try to get Eddie Murphy to do it. But Roland Emmerich eventually settled on Will Smith because he was a fan of, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and stuff like that. But the studio executives on Fox were just I guess they were kind of hesitant to go black, I guess you could say.
Really?
Yeah. And Emmerich really went to bat for Will Smith. And he was like, this kid's going to be a star. He's going to be perfect for this. I'm casting him.
Good move.
Now, another interesting bit of casting news about this movie was that Bill Pullman's character, the president, what's his name? President Whitmore. So originally President Whitmore was going to be played by Kevin Spacey. And the reason for this was because Dean Devlin, the writer and producer on Independence Day, was childhood friends with the guy. They kind of grew up together. And so he really wanted Kevin Spacey in the role, but Kevin Spacey wasn't a big actor at the time. And so Fox was just no, we don't want to put someone like that in.
When did Seven come out? Was that before or after this?
I want to say 97. It's funny though, because once they cast Bill Pullman, they had to rewrite the role, because originally President Whitmore was going to be kind of like an older, almost Nixon-like president.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was probably a good decision to go with like a younger hotshot, because Bill Pullman just nailed it.
Oh, I love Bill Pullman.
And I love that his backstory for his character even fit with that mentality too, because he was like an old combat veteran guy. He was like very much a man of action. He wasn't into politics. And that's all set up in the writing.
He's the Prince of Spaceballs.
Yeah.
I'm an honest to God prince.
He obviously has flight experience.
Yes. That Winnebago, man.
Yeah.
There it is. I appreciated the writing in this movie. And one of the things I wanted to talk about too was like typically in these like big set action movies with aliens and all that stuff, like the human characters and their story, especially more recently, like really take a backseat to the action, and it sometimes is to the detriment of the movie. Like a lot of people complained about like the more modern Godzilla movie, or like with Godzilla, where
it's a masterpiece,
where they punked us. They punked us with Bryan Cranston only being in it for like 15 minutes, and it just like the rest of the movie was just kind of shallow, and there's not a lot to it. This movie,
goddamn masterpiece.
The human, it is. I like it. It's, it got some heat.
Well, what's funny is like, so this movie takes place over the course of 3 days: July 3rd, July 2nd, July 3rd, July 4th. And if you look at its structure, like each day is its own act. So July 2nd is the first act, July 3rd is the second act, July 4th is the third act. And, Emmerich and Devlin wrote this script over the course of like 4 weeks. And if you look at the writing in this...
You can kind of tell they rushed it, right?
No, not at all. Like it's actually like extremely well written and structured.
Really?
In the sense that, like, if you look at the first act of this movie...
Don't you talk shit about this movie, Vader. I swear to God.
I got some shit to talk about.
If you look at the first act of this movie, like, it's all set up for what comes next.
Yeah.
And it's so masterfully done, like, just like...
Oh, with the algorithm and the virus and him, like, figuring out what the countdown actually means. It all pays off in the end.
But, I mean, just like the slow reveal of the ships, like, you don't really even get to see the ships until like, towards the end of the act.
I can't wait to talk about the miniatures and the way they made the explosions in this movie. But
also, if you look at the number of characters that they're juggling in this film, I think there are like 13 characters or so, like, that have like substantial roles. And I think I mentioned on the last podcast that Stephen E. D'Souza, who wrote and directed Street Fighter, he said that like it's you never want to make a movie with more than 7 characters because the audience gets confused and it's hard to follow. But like this movie pulled it off, very well. And it's kind of surprising because if you look at Devlin and Emmerich's track record, like Stargate and this movie are both very well written movies. Universal Soldier, middle of the road. But then, like, you look at all their other movies like Godzilla and stuff like that, and it's just like a mess. So you just have to wonder, like, how did they get this so right and all the others so wrong?
I don't know. There's a moment in this movie talking about like the characters and getting a feel for each one, even though there's this big, like, huge, massive movie going on as the backdrop of these alien invasion, is like that moment where the first lady is in the hospital and the doctor's like, we got to her too late, and then the little girl comes in and is like, okay, mommy needs to get some rest now, she's gonna go to sleep. And he walks out and everybody knows that she's gone, and he's like, yeah, mommy's sleeping now. I was like, oh my god, I was freaking dying, man. Like, this movie hits you in the heart like a good couple of times.
It's not afraid to kill its characters. That's one of the cool things about it is like it sets up all these characters, and then when they start dying, you're just like, oh shit.
It was rough, man. And I have no complaints about this movie whatsoever. Vader, you do, though. What are your...
This movie didn't age well for me.
Oh, really? I disagree.
No, not... So...
In what way?
So, like, the ship effects, the blowing up the buildings, the mothership, all that stuff, at the end of the movie, all looks great. But there's parts of this movie that I just think look terrible now. Like the dogfighting scenes look like trash. They're just trash.
Really?
The canyon scene where they're flying through the canyon.
Yeah.
Looks like some bullshit 1979 Battlestar Galactica show to me. It looks terrible. The skipping over the edge of the cliff, and him landing on his parachute 25 feet away from the downship, and he goes over there and punches it out, and it's like, get out of here.
Oh, come on, man.
I find it completely ridiculous. There's parts of this movie that I, after I've rewatched it, because it's been a long time since I've seen this movie. I used to love this movie. I still love this movie. Don't get me wrong, but there's parts of it that are just super cringy to me now.
Uh-oh.
It's like Will Smith, I'm going to borrow this helicopter and I'm going to fly directly to where the first lady and my girlfriend and my kid are at. You know, it's just like, oh, there they are. Well, let's go back to the base, you know, because he knew exactly where they were going to be.
Well, he told him where to go. He told her to go to that base.
It's just silly to me.
So he's like, if she's going to be anywhere, she's going to be at that base.
The whole, hey, we're going to take this 1993 technology,
the laptop,
this laptop and infect this millions of years advanced technology that just flew 80 million light years across the world. It's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's just,
I bought it. Hook, line, and sinker.
It's just absolutely dumb.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Those fucking aliens didn't know what they were getting into.
Stupid.
When they open the window and they're like, hello.
Yeah.
And then they shoot the missile at the guy.
You know, I just think my brain processes these kind of movies a little bit different than they did 20 years ago.
Have you been cadished? Like, this
I don't
movie
know.
makes
I don't
no
know.
sense.
I just expect more from alien movies now.
Oh, okay.
I expect a little bit of common sense and sensibility, I guess. I don't know.
Has
this
anybody
movie, it comes off more like a TV movie to me now.
Oh, all right.
You know, I mean, when this thing came out in the theaters, it was the shit. Don't get me wrong. I loved it. I still like it. You know, when they blew up the cities, that was awesome.
You know how they did that?
It was awesome. But
so one of the reasons why it looks so cool and when they have that like rolling fire effect is they actually filmed it upside down. So the models were actually hanging off the ceiling, and that's because fire goes up, it rolls upwards. So they filmed it with the models upside down, and then they, you know, did their pyrotechnic stuff, and that's what made the fire look like it was rolling on the ground instead of just going straight up like a mushroom cloud.
You know, the interesting thing about this movie in particular was how they chose to do the special effects, because at the time, after Jurassic Park, everyone was rushing to digital. And Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin were, when they were budgeting this out, because I think this was done on a budget of, I want to say 60 to 70 million, somewhere in between there. They were like, you know, if we went all digital, it was going to cost like a lot more money. So they decided to do like a hybrid thing where they would use some digital effects, but a lot of this stuff was done with miniatures and blue screen compositing, like the dogfight canyon thing that Vader was poo-pooing on a minute ago. That was all like done just like they did, you know, Return of the Jedi's, you know, forest sequence where they were speeding through the forest. It was the exact same kind of style of special effects. And so like, I actually like which was made 15 years before this movie. Yeah. so I actually kind of disagree. Even though like there are like some kind of chintzy special effects in here, like I felt like the movie held up really well.
Yeah. Anytime you use miniatures and you actually have like practical effects like that, I feel like even though it's showing its age because we now know how they do it, I think it still holds up better than movies that would lean more on the CGI stuff. Like this felt a lot of this like miniature stuff. It felt very much like Terminator to me. That Terminator, like that scene where she's standing against the gate and the nuclear bomb goes off and the whole place just kind of falls over.
I watched T2 just the other night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen those.
Not holding up very well.
No?
No.
Oh, man. You're getting spoiled.
I guess.
It's just yucking the yums.
Vader calls this movie a made-for-TV movie now.
It was the highest-grossing movie of 1996. Yeah. It was the second film to hit 500 million worldwide. I think the only movie that made more money than this one at the time was Jurassic Park.
I loved it.
It was a huge hit.
This rewatch. I can't say that word. It got me. I loved it. I was like, man, I'm so glad I revisited this movie. I haven't seen it forever. And
I'm so glad.
It totally holds up for me.
I felt like I picked the one movie that didn't really coincide with everyone else's choices.
No, it fit in perfectly.
No, it was
better
good.
than Team America, for Christ's sake.
Good.
It is a very patriotic movie, though. Yeah. Like, you know, it's very much about, you know, the spirit of America.
We will not go quietly into the night.
People come together.
Yeah. And I liked it. It had that like American value, but it wasn't afraid to kind of like bring everybody together. The scene where they all teamed together worldwide, they had like the Pakistani, Israeli army with the Royal Air Force all working together and like using Morse code and stuff. Like that felt like a really good like hoorah moment.
Yeah, so in some Middle Eastern countries, the movie was actually banned because of the whole Israelis working with the Pakistanis thing.
That's ridiculous.
In the movie. Yeah,
that's so ridiculous. But whatever.
I mean, if there's aliens, can we just put our differences aside?
I mean, they said that in the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of aliens, let's talk about the aliens and the just the concept of how they're
like locusts.
Yeah. Okay, it's just the whole idea of these aliens. Like typically when you either got the Greys, you're an expert on these aliens. You got the Greys, you got the lizard people. They're all
reptilians.
The reptilians.
Yes, get it right.
Sorry. They're all very humanoid, like old Star Trek.
Humanoid-ish, yeah.
Yeah, like Star Trek shows and stuff. But this one, like I felt like they went the right direction where they made them very much so like way different.
I kind of feel like they went like, what if Greys were mixed with some kind of like weird insectoid race?
Yeah.
They kind of had that look.
I like the idea of like the exoskeleton.
Yeah.
Like they would come like armored up, but underneath they're just kind of normal like flesh and blood type things.
It's funny because the story behind that was they had like Roland Emmerich, the director, had asked his creature designer guy to come up with some alien concepts for him, and he couldn't decide between these two different aliens, and he was like, why don't we just use both of them?
Yeah.
We'll use this one as the exoskeleton, this one's inside that. And so he's like, I'm going to have the best of both worlds.
No, I really like the aliens in this movie.
Oh, good.
I do. I really do. I like the whole concept of them.
Yeah.
They're so creepy.
They are. They're
very
gnarly.
creepy.
They are very creepy. Yeah.
I like their ship design too.
Yeah.
The concept of these aliens really worked
So
for
did
me.
you notice that the ship, the Roswell ship, I guess, is that what it was?
Yeah.
The one that they flew up there, how similar it looks to that video that's been released in the last few months that they've been showing for the last couple of years from the leaked Pentagon footage.
Oh, the little Tic Tac?
No, not the Tic Tac one, but the one that's like flying through.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
it looks really similar. It's
Yeah.
weird.
Randy Quaid's character
Oh,
in
God.
this is the person that I think of anytime I hear and I was abducted by alien story. I was like, they're all just like Randy Quaid. They're all crazy, and you can't see me, but I'm putting up the air quotes, and all like they're drunks now because that's their only recourse.
They did things to him.
Yeah.
Sexually.
They abused him
Sexually.
sexually.
Hey boys, I'm back. It was such a great moment. That guy's kind of gone off the rocker in real life too, though, doesn't he?
God,
I was after I watched the movie 2 days ago, I don't know. I instantly went to Cameo to see if he was on there.
Is he?
He's not.
Oh, damn.
That would have been awesome.
Actually, I think he's on the run, laying low somewhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you seen his videos lately?
Yeah, the one with Trump.
He's off
Where
the
he's talking
rails.
about Trump.
He's got his crazy beard and his
Strobe lights
going on. Yeah, it's like an evil supervillain.
That's amazing.
It's awesome.
Yeah, like he's really gone off the deep end.
Yeah.
They're out to get me.
Yeah. He wasn't acting in Independence Day.
No. I'm convinced that that's more or less what he's like in real life.
My wife walked through. She goes, "Oh, you're watching Vegas Vacation? Isn't that Cousin Eddie?" It's like, no, different movie.
Same character.
Same character.
Same dude.
He's not really acting. He's just
No, he just plays that one.
that's who he is.
Well, getting back to the aliens, though, it was interesting because Roland Emmerich, I guess, is like a big environmentalist.
Yeah,
person.
he's got that message in quite a few of his movies.
And the character that Jeff Goldblum plays in this movie is very much an environmentalist as well. And so they made the aliens these creatures that would just come in and consume every natural resource on a planet and then just leave it like a husk of its former self. And that's basically what all the climate change people are afraid of. And so this movie is like the environmentalist nightmare. But it's kind of interesting because at the end, like Jeff Goldblum, he kind of backs off on that a little bit where he's
like,
not afraid.
Maybe humans aren't so bad.
Yeah, not afraid to smoke, not afraid to litter a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, this is healthy, huh? This is what you do now?
I can get used to it.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to the moon and mine it. We're gonna strip mine that thing, man. We're gonna go to Mars. We're gonna strip mine it. That's what we're gonna do.
We're gonna become the aliens.
We're going.
Independence Day.
We're moving to the asteroid belt. We're gonna mine that shit. That's exactly what's going on. That's just what people do.
Yeah,
man.
we're conquerors. It's in human nature to explore, take over.
1,000 years from now, that's going to be our mothership, and we're going to be coming into some stupid little planet, and all the little aliens are going, "Oh God, it's the humans!" And we're going to come and give us your water and your gold.
Classic Vader hot take.
That's amazing. I hope that happens.
Could have been at a barbecue.
You're gold.
Some alien's going to punch Vader in the face. But welcome to Zarlak 23.
Shut up.
And it's so weird, like seeing the little kids in this movie and realizing that their characters in the terrible sequel.
Yeah. Has anybody seen the sequel?
I have.
Have you? I haven't seen it.
We went to see it in the theater.
Was it as bad as everybody says it was?
Yes.
It's not good.
It's not good at all.
That's a shame.
It was better. What are you guys talking about now?
The graphics
Vader, I swear to
were
God.
good. They were good. But no, it's terrible. It's not good. It's not good.
Real quick, final thought for me. The environmental thing. I think one of my favorite moments with Jeff Goldblum was when he was drunk and he was going on that rant and he was like kicking things over and tossed. Finally gave up and just got tossed. That little moment of him acting like he was drunk, I just loved it. I was like, I don't know why. It just struck me as like really
all the
funny.
acting in this movie is really good. Like Bill Pullman really nails it.
Oh yeah,
Really?
yeah, man. He's like the young, like idealistic.
I just see TV soap opera shit. I just don't feel like the acting was that great in this movie.
Will Smith, Harry Connick Jr.
Yeah. Who was the first lady?
Even
She was
Vivica A.
from
Fox.
Dances with Wolves and Battlestar
Mary
Galactica.
Battlestar
McCormick.
Galactica. She was the president.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mary McCormick's a great actress.
Yeah.
Like everyone, Robert Loggia. Hello.
Vivica Fox.
Yeah, I like him.
It was funny. Like they let him choose which branch of the military he was going to be a general in. They were like, yeah, choose whatever you want. It's not said so in the script. And he's like, I want to be a Marine.
Adam Baldwin. He's in this too?
Adam Baldwin. Data.
Data. Oh, we haven't talked about Data yet.
Yeah.
He's like my favorite character, I think.
He's so funny, dude. Like the wacky, like 70s scientist who's like all about the aliens.
They don't let us out much.
He was cool too.
Yeah, he's like, you want to see something really cool?
Release me.
Oh, that was one of the
great moment.
that was one of the creepiest scenes
yeah.
in the movie.
For sure.
That was when I really liked these aliens.
Yeah, Brent Spiner. It's funny because they actually went back and reshot Adam Baldwin shooting the alien in the head a couple times because in test screenings, the audiences were like, the alien didn't suffer enough. We really want to see him get what's coming to him.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I really enjoyed that moment where the alien like takes out the whole medical staff and he's like talking to the president. That back and forth that they had is super eerie. He's like, what? We can work together. No peace.
Yeah, and Bill Pullman just stands up and he's like, nuke the bastard.
Yeah.
It's like such a badass moment.
Yeah, it was a great moment. It's too bad that nuke didn't work though.
Robert Loggia took his character way too seriously. Way too seriously in this movie.
Well,
but it was fun. I liked it.
There's a funny story where Dean Devlin was talking to Robert Loggia one day, and this was towards the beginning of filming. And Robert Loggia was still trying to get like a feel for how he should play his character. And Dean Devlin said, "Oh, go watch the movie Airplane, and look at this actor in that movie." And what Dean Devlin meant to say was, "Go watch the movie Airport." And so Robert Loggia went and watched Airplane, and he thought that he had been cast in a spoof movie about an alien invasion. Robert
Mars Attacks.
Yeah, Robert Loggia's like, oh, this is a comedy. Okay. And they had to come back to him and be like, no, this is serious. This is a serious movie.
I gotta call my lawyer. That freaking guy.
Harvey
I'm
Firestein.
so glad he died like in the beginning of the movie. I would not be able to stand listening to him.
Why did I just send my mother to Georgia?
Anyway, any final thoughts on this movie real quick from anybody else? You got any favorite moments or anything like that?
The destruction moments where like, that first initial like attack on LA, New York, and DC. Like I still remember like being in the theater and watching the trailer for this movie and that iconic shot of the White House blowing up at the end.
Yeah.
And everyone just being like, holy shit. Like that. I mean, that's the type of, like, this was a true summer blockbuster event movie, so much so that it spawned like the whole disaster movie franchise. Yeah. I believe they called it disaster porn.
Yeah.
Where it was just like, what can we think to blow up next? And but up to that point, all the disaster movies had always been like kind of natural disasters, and this was the first one to kind of look at an alien invasion as a disaster film. And but that iconic shot of the White House blowing up, man, that's something that sticks with you even to this day.
Right on.
And
it was well done.
This was such a big movie, obviously, for Will Smith that when he did Men in Black, some reporter or something had asked him, I remember this interview, some reporter had asked him, like, another alien movie, huh? And he was like, you can't go wrong with aliens.
He's right.
And funny enough, Jada Pinkett Smith was supposed to be cast in the Vivica A. Fox role in this movie. and she had a conflict with the Nutty Professor, I think, so she couldn't do this one. But this was before they were married, I think. So they hadn't even met yet.
She was in. She did Matrix 2, right, or 3?
2.
Do you have a favorite moment from this movie, Vader?
Yeah.
Okay.
He has show notes today.
It's not really. It kind of goes along with what Matt was saying, but I always like the scenes when the ships are coming into the planet, and they get the reveal out of the firewall, and when they're coming over the city, you know, like especially the New York one when all the people are playing in the streets and everything, and they look up, they're like, "Holy shit!" You know, I like those scenes there. They were kind of cool.
This was also the movie that started the trend of not allowing the dogs to die. Remember that?
Yeah.
I do remember the dog in this movie, but is that a trend?
So yeah, this movie did start the trend of dogs not dying in movies. Because it was, very blatant where the dog outran the frickin' fireball. And
all through the tunnel.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But
What was his name? Boomer? Is that the
Something
dog's
like
name?
something like that. But it was funny because when The Lost World came out, Steven Spielberg's follow-up to Jurassic Park, he made it a point to kill the dog because everyone was, saying like,
Is that why the dog died in that movie?
That's why the dog died in that movie, yeah.
Good for him.
Because every other movie was like, making sure the dogs lived. Spielberg was like, I'm going to fuck with people.
Like we talked a bunch of crap about that movie, and it's not a great Spielberg movie, but like it was gruesome, man. Like
Which one?
Lost World, when the T-Rex went into San Diego and like it was ate the guy in front of the blockbuster and stuff. Like Spielberg was like, let's just kill some motherfucker. So that was our discussion on Independence Day. Thank you so much for choosing this movie.
Oh, I'm so glad you liked it.
Thank you very much.
I thought it was fantastic. Thank you. Before we move on to our next topic, I want to remind people that you guys can go to saltynerdclub.com. That takes you directly to our Patreon account, like Jude said at the beginning of the podcast, and you can help support the podcast there. You can pick your tier. You can give us $10, whatever, $5, and you get exclusive content. We're talking full-length episodes, about an hour long or so. We got some blooper reels in there once in a while. You guys, of course, get stickers and some exclusive T-shirts that we're working on pretty soon where you have to be a Patreon member to have access to the T-shirts. So we'll get those set up for you. So please consider going to saltynerdclub.com and supporting the podcast for some awesome content. Moving on, next, I think you picked Captain America,
I did.
First
Yes.
Avenger. So why don't you tell us about this movie and why you picked it?
Oh, you want me to break it down?
Oh, it's not that hard.
Well, I don't know. It's Captain America. It's his origin story.
There you go.
I picked this movie because you said, hey, pick a 4th of July patriotic movie. And I said, Captain America? And that's all there was to it.
That's it, huh?
Yeah, so.
I do like Vader was like, nailed it.
But no, it's his origin. It's, it's scrawny little Steve Rogers takes the super serum and becomes the super soldier. And we get Bucky and Red Skull and all the goodness in between. So, and Hydra's in there and, and Tommy Lee Jones. And
oh, yeah, we get introduced to the Tesseract.
The
Was this the
Tesseract?
first time? Or
Yeah.
The Tesseract was in Thor, or did that come out after this? That was before this. Okay, so the Tesseract.
That was the square, the blue cube. Which one is that?
That's the Tesseract.
Is that the Tesseract? Okay.
Yeah. So that was kind of like their introduction to the Infinity Stones.
It's
in the MCU.
like my brother said, he goes, back when the MCU was good. It's like, yes.
Why do people say that? I thought they've been pretty good so far.
Yeah,
There's one or two stinkers.
I don't really agree with my brother on that one either.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Thor 2 was kind of meh, and what was it? Yeah, Thor 2 was meh, and Iron Man 3 was kind of, but I mean, on the whole, I think they've been really good.
We'll see how Phase 4 goes, but
I'm done. Like this is.
Are we on Phase 5 now?
Yeah.
Phase 5. Yeah.
I don't know. In my opinion, I think if you're not interested in the direction that they're going with Marvel, like Infinity War and the whole Thanos thing was a perfect time.
But I sat through this thing. I watched it yesterday, and I didn't stop. Usually when I rewatch these movies that we do for the show, I'll push pause and go make a sandwich or something. I'll spend like 4 hours to watch a 2-hour movie, but no, I watched this one from start to finish and I enjoyed every second of it.
Great.
It's just these original MCU movies are good, man. They're super fun.
I don't like this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's probably one of my least favorite of the Phase 1 Marvel movies.
Really?
Yeah.
You thought Thor and Thor 2 was better?
No, I didn't say that I think they were better. It's one of my least favorite. Like, it doesn't hold up for me. I really, one of the reasons, I'll explain why before you give me all those judgmental looks.
He's good at this judgmental looks.
He's eyeballing me so hard. Like, as far as an origin movie goes, yeah, it's fine. It's an origin movie for Captain America, which is great. Every superhero in the MCU has to have at least, something of an origin movie.
I love Skinny Steve.
Except for Peter Parker. He's just, Skinny Steve. That was like the first time that they used that whole face swapping technology in the MCU, right? Because they put Chris, what's his name?
No, they shrunk him down.
Evans.
No, they didn't.
I think they did.
No, it's another skinny dude actor.
They just had him
Did they?
lose a bunch of weight and then gain a bunch of weight.
No, because he's like a foot and a half shorter than he is. That's not how that works.
Man, I got to go back and watch because I think Steve,
Did you watch the wrong movie?
I think he played that same role.
No, they just took his face and they swapped it on a different actor.
Yeah, it was an emaciated actor, and they put his head on.
Just delete this part out. Where I sound like I don't know what I'm
going to
talking about.
leave it in.
Same technology from that Jason Momoa commercial.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was a different actor who played the physical role, and then they just like plastered Chris Evans' face on top, and they just rolled with it. I thought it was. I mean, that worked for me. But the reason why I don't really like this movie is because I was really bummed out that the majority of like the Captain America moments was a freaking montage. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, the most exciting part of this movie, Captain America fighting against Hydra and Nazis in World War II, is like a 1.5-minute montage. Like, what? Why am I here?
To see his origin story.
I'm here to see Captain America fight Nazis in World War II. I don't want a montage.
Got the
I want to
Howling
see
Commandos. We got his
we got
super
like 30
serum.
seconds of that shit.
Yeah, it's all good.
I was like, come on, man. I want to see that movie. The montage, that little, 3 to 5 minute moment of that. That's what I wanted to see. Give me the origin story at the beginning, the first maybe half of the second act, origin, Captain America, how he became. Second half, give me frickin' Steve Rogers kicking ass on the battlefield, and then have him eventually get to Hydra.
I've never felt that way about this movie ever.
Oh, and the graphics and the like. I mean, I think they were going for this purposefully to make it seem like it was an old movie, like the old. Remember that movie with God, what's his name? Jude Law. What is it? Captain Skyhawk or whatever it was, with something with tomorrow. I can't remember it, but anyway.
Oh, I know what you're
Sky
talking
Captain.
Sky
in the World of
Captain.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, that movie, how it had that like old school look to it, like it was made in the 50s and it was purposely made like that. I felt like that was done in this in
As
Captain
far as
America.
what?
Just the graphics, like that, the scenes where they were like in that car driving towards the big, giant bomber wing thing as they were escaping, and a lot of the moments where he was in that montage where he was like,
I did think the underground airport hangar bay was pretty enormous, but yeah,
it looks chintzy. It looks bad, like bad green screen. I don't know, man. There's not a lot about this movie that I like. Besides Chris Evans and like the actual building of the character, I think works, but everything around it, I'm kind of like, they could have done so much
Did
better.
you like
I just completely disagree with you.
Well,
Did you like Marjorie Tyrell, her little appearance, making out with Steve?
Oh yes, absolutely. That wasn't CG.
Directed by Joe Johnston, who did Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you like
Yeah, that was a shitty movie.
No, I don't know. I know I'm going to catch a lot of hate for this, but I didn't like the direction that they took this movie. I felt like it had so much more potential.
The issue with this movie, and I actually really like this movie, but the problem is that at the time it was being made, it had to accomplish more than just telling Captain America's story. It had to be a setup for the upcoming Avengers film.
Mm-hmm.
It had to tie in a lot of stuff from Thor and Iron Man. And in fact, while they were getting ready to shoot this movie, Joss Whedon had just signed on to do the Avengers film. And he did like an uncredited rewrite on the script in order to enhance a lot of the kind of crossover elements to it. So it wasn't just, they couldn't just do like a straight Captain America movie. They had a lot of different things, a lot of different boxes that they needed to check for this film. And, but that being said, I think the Captain America movies are like my favorite movies in the MCU.
Yeah, the other two are
by far.
Yeah, the other two are great. Like this is probably my least favorite Captain America one, but originally, like the fact that this movie ever got made to begin with is just like it's a miracle, considering all the issues surrounding Marvel's IPs and stuff. But originally, the concept for this was going to be the first movie in the MCU ahead of Iron Man. And it was going to be split where the first half of the movie was going to be in World War II and the second half was going to be in present day. And Jon Favreau was originally supposed to direct this. And when things got all shuffled around on the Marvel front, Iron Man ended up being the first movie out the door, and Jon Favreau was the one who shepherded that one. And
followed very closely by the Hulk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Hulk wasn't really part of the MCU. That was a Universal film.
Yeah, but it was part of the MCU, though, because it had all the tiebacks. It had
technically it was, but I mean, because
Tony Stark showed up at the end, too.
Like all the other, like the Iron Man and Captain America and Thor movies, those were all released through Paramount. And Hulk was a Universal thing, and that was from back when Marvel was kind of like auctioning off its IPs. See,
they still have issues with that now. That's why we don't have like
a little bit. See, back in the 90s, for people who aren't familiar with this, Marvel declared bankruptcy. And in order to get out of that, they were, selling licenses to their characters and stuff. And so Spider-Man got sold to Sony, Daredevil, Fantastic Four, and X-Men got sold to Fox, and like a bunch of other stuff. And once the studios kind of got their act together with superhero movies, like the success of Spider-Man and X-Men and stuff, Marvel realized, we could be making a lot more money if we made these movies ourselves. And what Marvel did was unprecedented at the time. Basically, they got a bank loan for like $500 million. And in order to do that, they had to put up as collateral every single one of their IPs that they still had ownership of. So Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, all this stuff. And if they had failed in their endeavor to produce their own movies, like if they had put out the first Iron Man and it had bombed, they would have lost everything.
Jeez.
So like they took a huge gamble, and Kevin Feige is really the guy who kind of stepped up and put this in motion. But originally Captain America, the First Avenger, was supposed to be the first movie in the MCU. But for whatever reason, they moved it back to being, I think, the fourth or fifth.
Fourth, I think.
Something like that.
Because Thor, it was
Iron Man?
Iron Man, the Hulk, Thor, and then Captain America, I think.
No, it was Iron Man, Thor, Iron Man 2, Thor 2, then Captain America.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, those Hulk movies aren't.
Yeah, there's a reason why.
Thunderbolt Ross is part of the same.
But that's just fan service. It's fan service.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Mark Ruffalo is the Hulk, and the Hulk hasn't had his own standalone MCU movie.
Yeah, I just thought that was problems with Edward Norton because he had issues with that movie with the producers and stuff, and they had like a falling out or something.
Well, the issue really is that Universal owns the Hulk IP.
Yeah.
Kind of like how Sony has the Spider-Man IP. So, but there was like a loophole with the Hulk license where basically any standalone Hulk movie had to be done through Universal, but he could show up in other movies without Universal's involvement, which is why he's been relegated to kind of like a secondary character.
Anyway, Captain America. Jude, you haven't said anything yet. How do you feel about this movie?
I like this movie. I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but I like it. And I don't think I've ever watched Winter Soldier, and it kind of made me want to. So can we do that?
Absolutely. Sure.
I love Winter Soldier.
Love that movie.
Love it.
Yeah. I love that actor, and I can't think of his name, but I like this
Sebastian
movie.
Stan.
Thank you.
What's funny is when they were casting Captain America, so it came down to 3 actors in the final kind of casting round. One was John Krasinski from The Office.
Yep.
He played Jim. The other was Sebastian Stan, and then there was Chris Evans.
Have you ever heard John Krasinski's interview about why he didn't take the role? Or why he just kind of was like, oh, it's hilarious.
Well, it wasn't that he turned it down. He didn't get it.
There's a story. He said it was on a late night show. It was Jimmy Kimmel or somebody.
It was about the Thor body shaming.
Yeah, it's like so he was at Marvel's whatever producing office, and they were talking to him about doing Captain America, and he happened to be around at the same time that Chris Hemsworth was there, and Chris Hemsworth is all like cut up for Thor, like jacked, and John Krasinski looks over at him, and he's like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And he walks by, and he's like, I'm not going to be Captain America. He's like, there's no way.
It's funny, though, because he's lobbying really hard for the role of Reed Richards.
Yeah, I'm totally for that. I think he would fit perfectly.
I think he'd be great.
Yeah. And, to like give him some credit though. Like there was when he played Jack Ryan, and he buffed up for that role. He looks pretty good. I think he could have pulled off Captain America.
He looks awesome in Shazam.
That's
not him. That's
Chuck.
What's his name? Levi.
Zach-
Oh my god! Oh my god!
We're
Yeah,
talking about
sorry.
John Krasinski's from The Office.
That's
No, I know who you're talking about.
And Jack
two
Ryan.
nerd demerits from your nerd card.
They could be brothers.
When you guys are all talking about like these side characters and you name the actors and not the character in the movie, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go along with you. Oh, I totally know who that is.
I'm sorry.
But it's funny because Chris Evans, he originally played the Human Torch in the Fox version of Fantastic Four. And when he was being considered for the role of Captain America, he was kind of iffy on it because he was worried that he was going to get too famous and it was going to ruin his life. And so basically Marvel settled on him, and they went to him and was like, congratulations, Chris Evans, we want you to be Captain America. And he's like, I'm going to pass. So he passed on it. And Marvel, the people at Marvel were like, we really want Chris Evans. And so they went to Robert Downey Jr. and they're like, hey, can you talk to Chris for us? And so Robert Downey Jr. calls up Chris Evans and is like, dude, what the are you doing?
Don't turn down this role.
Yeah. And so
you out of your mind.
And so RDJ convinced Evans to take the role, even though he passed on it. And Sebastian Stan, who plays Bucky in the movie, he was like next in line to be Captain America before Chris Evans, took the role. And Marvel was like, we really like this guy. We want to use him. And so like they gave him kind of Bucky as a consolation prize, knowing that he would eventually be Winter Soldier and all this other stuff.
I think that worked out great. I like him, especially in Winter Soldier.
I remember when I found out Chris Evans was going to be Captain America, me and some friends were like,
yeah.
The Human Torch? That guy's an asshole. We can't stand that guy. But
I was really iffy on it too.
Yeah. I can't think of anybody else playing the role now.
Yeah.
Chris Evans is Captain America.
Yeah, he owned it for sure.
And that's just how it is in my head.
And, despite my issues with the movie itself, I think the characters in it and the actors that play him are spot on. You got Peggy. I think that was a great addition.
Stanley Tucci.
Tommy Lee Jones as the gruffy drill sergeant guy. Like, he was perfect.
Let's be real. Tommy Lee Jones just played Tommy Lee Jones.
Right. Yeah.
I love that moment. We're in the car and he looks up and I'm not going to kiss you.
Tommy Lee Jones plays K in every movie he's ever in.
Yeah.
He just plays himself.
It works though.
My favorite scene in this movie is the flag scene where they're like, every recruit has tried to get that flag and they've all failed. And then Captain America, or Steve Rogers just comes along and he pushes over
takes the pin out
flagpole.
of it.
Yeah, just pulls it to the ground, walks up, takes the flag,
and then drives back.
Yeah,
I loves it. I love it when he hands it to his commanding officer or whatever, and he's just like, "Thank you, sir."
The thing I really love about this character, the way they treated the character in this movie, Marvel was in kind of an odd position for this film because Captain America, you'd think, wouldn't play very well overseas, so like they're like, how do we balance the core of the character, which is the symbol of America, with other people's ideals.
Yeah.
And Stanley Tucci's character has a great kind of line in the movie where he talks about how the serum just enhances what's already there. So like, if you're a good person, you become an even better person, and stuff along those lines. And we've already seen that that the character of Steve Rogers is just so like principled and idealistic and set in his ways, where like, he's not afraid to go up, against impossible odds and, take a few hits or whatever. Like it's the courage and content of his character, which makes him such an ideal candidate for this role. And when he becomes Captain America, the whole thing is that it's not so much, about America's better than everyone else. It's about being an individual and being strong in the face of adversity and, having courage and not being afraid to do the right thing, even when it's the hardest thing in the world
that moment,
to do.
one of the very first moments that he talks with the doctor, and he's like, "So, do you want to go and kill Nazis?" And he's like, "I don't want to kill anybody. I just don't like bullies. It doesn't matter who they are." And I think that principle has been really strong through all of his movies.
That's Captain America, man.
Yeah, exactly. And it even comes in Civil War, especially. They really hammer down that he's like, "No, I don't care what government it is, whether it's America or another. I don't like bullies. I don't like this idea of like
that's fear, not freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it is impressive how across all the movies that Captain America is in, like he stays so consistent in his ideals and his kind of like values, I guess you could say. Like in Winter Soldier, I'm not going to spoil anything for Jude's sake.
But you've never seen it?
I don't think I have.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
But in Winter Soldier, he's basically his greatest villain or his greatest adversary is someone that he doesn't want to hurt. And so and you see him struggle with that, but at the same time, like he never shies away from his duty as a friend and as a soldier. And it's very impressive how he's able to walk that tightrope. But you always see it, throughout even the Avengers movies, like his biggest philosophical differences with Tony Stark, where, it's a difference between being selfish and selfless and, being, rich and doing the right thing.
I love during Civil War when the hype was going for that movie, like nerds on Twitter were actually getting into arguments over like whose philosophy was more right. Like, oh no, I'm with Tony. It's like, there has to be accountability. It's like, no, it's got to be Cap.
Well, that's one of the reasons why Civil War is one of my favorite Marvel movies, is because like there's arguments to be made for both sides of that film. And neither one of them is wrong, really. Like if you think about it, but to see like such characters that you care about and where each one of them is coming from being pitted against each other, it's heartbreaking. And that's what makes that movie work so well.
I honestly think that is, if not the best villain, it's one of the best villains in the MCU is
Zemo or Zemo.
Zemo, yeah.
And I love how every movie just has that I could do this all day moment where Cap's getting his butt kicked and he's just like, just keeps getting back up and he's
Every
like, I
time.
could do this all day.
You can get that shirt on our store. Go to saltynerdstore.com. I have it. I made a little Captain America thing and it said, I can do this all day.
Love it.
So you didn't like the design of like the vehicles and stuff like that?
No. It wasn't that. It was all just very like, I didn't like the fact that we didn't have a solid like half hour of Captain America being Captain America during World War II.
He wanted it to be more Captain America-y.
Yeah. I wanted it to be less set up for the MCU and more about Captain America. And like he said, like they had to balance, setting up all these other movies. And I feel like it was just to the detriment of the movie, but also the aesthetic choice of making it look like it was an old school war movie from the 50s.
I really like that aesthetic. I think that's one of the reasons I really like this movie. Is that like, the Hydra designs in particular are awesome looking to me. I mean, and a lot of them were straight up designs that they took from like Nazi stuff.
Yeah.
From like actual Nazi blueprints and photos of stuff that they were developing back in the day.
And you remember when that happened?
They extrapolated and, made them crazy and stuff like that. But, those were all the super tanks and the plane with the big propeller.
Yeah.
And those were all like legit Nazi
ideas,
experiments. Yeah.
There was did you guys catch
the giant super V-wing plane?
Yeah. Did you guys catch the Indiana Jones reference in this movie? Where Red Skull was like, the Führer digs around for trinkets in the desert. I have the master. Like he's like bragging about himself. I'm like, oh, Indiana Jones. He's talking about the Ark.
But he was really doing that. Hitler was looking for that stuff in the deserts for real.
Yeah, that's
all over the world.
Also, Walter Frey was in the beginning of this movie.
Yes.
From Game of Thrones.
He was the guy at the church.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember now.
And Hugo Weaving as Red Skull.
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't get enough Red Skull in this movie.
I would have loved to have seen more Red Skull.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like he just kind of showed up after the fact.
He had good moments though.
Yeah, he had good moments, but like I don't know, man. I just feel like this movie could have been so much better if it would just have.
The thing is, Hugo Weaving hated playing this character.
Is that why he didn't come back?
Yeah, like I think his contract had him
for like 3 movies, right?
It was like I think he was on the hook for like 6 appearances. And
they just never came back.
well, I mean, like
I think it was the makeup and that kind of stuff.
Well, they didn't have a lot for Red Skull to do at the in the following movies, and so like so much time had passed. They were just like, if you don't want to come back, you don't have to. And he was like, I don't want to come back.
That's a bummer, man.
Yeah,
he was great. Yeah, I don't know. Just for me, like it's not my favorite. I like elements of it, and like we talked about some of our favorite moments and stuff. But just on a whole, I'm like, this movie could have been so much better.
You wanted a little more fan service.
No, not fans. I just wanted more battles. I wanted more fights.
You wanted more of a war movie.
Yeah, I wanted more of like a World War II movie with Captain America at the front and the what's his group called? His boys,
The Howling Commandos.
The Howling Commandos. Like I wanted that movie, and I just didn't feel like I got it.
I wanted more Dum Dum Dugan. It's funny because the principal from the Spider-Man movies, the Asian guy. He was the same actor who played his grandfather in this movie.
He has his grandfather's photo is in the principal's office in Spider-Man movies.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
so it's those little
cool
connections like that I love about
the MCU is great for that kind of stuff, man. Like there's a lot of attention to detail, and it's
like in
the event in New York. There's a lot of that all over.
In Winter Soldier, when they go back to the old Shield base, there's just a picture of Tommy Lee Jones in the background. It's just like, oh, I remember him.
Don't spoil it. You got to watch that tonight.
I will.
it's the bet. Like it's got to be in the top three.
Definitely
for MCU movies.
Probably the best Captain America movie. I think.
It's funny because each Captain America movie is kind of like a different genre. Where like the first one is kind of like a war movie. The second one's a political thriller, like straight up. And the third one, I guess you'd just call it more of a superhero movie.
And they're almost
Civil War,
and they're almost pseudo Avengers movies.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Everybody's in these things. You know, it's not just these aren't Captain America solo movies. I like Iron Man movies.
Yeah.
You know, these are everybody's in these Captain America.
I do
movies.
like that they have to keep coming up with excuses as to why they don't have everybody there. Like, hey, why don't you just call Thor? Like, he could come and take care of this. Yeah, he's busy on some other planet.
He's out in space.
It's pretty funny.
We don't need Thor.
Nah, we can handle it.
Don't need no stinking hammer.
Oh, we got okay. At some point in time, we have to do a podcast about the MCU because there's so many freaking cool moments about like when
that's a lot of movies.
When Captain America was fighting Thor for the first time in the Avengers. Oh, that's so much fun.
I mean, Kadish and I have time to watch them, but y'all don't.
I've seen them all.
I've seen them all.
Absolutely. I turn them on.
We've already seen everything.
I turn
no,
MCU
but you have to
movies
do
on
a
for fun.
fresh watch for the pod.
I do agree. You should.
Don't just be like, I saw that when it came out, Vader.
No, that's not what I mean. It's like I could go home tonight and turn Thor on just for fun.
Yeah.
That's right there. Disney Plus. It's great. I
tell you though, Thor didn't get good until the third one.
Yeah, I agree.
I know. I like Thor too. I know.
I like the first one.
Really?
I did.
That's the roughest one.
I know it's the roughest one, but there's just parts of that movie that I kind of like.
I can't wait to talk about that.
It's an aesthetic thing. I like the dark elves.
Okay.
I like the darkness.
Can't do that anymore, though. Can't have a race of evil people.
Oh yeah,
it's against the rules.
They can't be. They're a race of people, so they can't all be evil.
Yeah,
because that's
like
whatever.
That's another thing that the MCU kind of like ushered in was like the bad guys have to have a legitimate reason to be evil. They can't just be evil for the sake of being evil. Like you see all the bad guys that always
those goddamn Scree and Skrulls and whatever the hell they're called.
There always has to be some.
It's like they're Skrulls. They sound evil, so they're evil. Okay.
I tell you, the best MCU crossover was in Ragnarok, where Thor and Doctor Strange get together. That was hilarious.
Doctor Strange. That is another one that's really high on my list. I really enjoyed that movie.
All right, well, we'll talk about the MCU some other time. Captain America, final thoughts. I feel like it has a ton of potential, but I don't think it really quite got there because like you mentioned, like Kadish mentioned, it was so dragged down by having to do all this setup for all these other movies. I feel like there's just something missing about this movie for me.
I didn't feel like they were setting up other movies. I didn't feel like it's like when I watched it, it's like, oh, they're setting this up, they're setting that up. It was just a natural part of the show. It's like, oh, this is where S.H.I.E.L.D. starts. That's pretty cool, and there's Tony Stark's dad. And, it's just, they're just characters in the show. So, yeah, it was fun.
Jude, any final thoughts?
Well, like I said, I like it, but I guess maybe after I watch Winter Soldier, I'll do a comparison and tell you what I really think.
So much better. So much better.
Don't hype it up too much.
Sorry. Kadish, any final thoughts on Captain America, the First Avenger?
I just think it was a great introduction to the character. I liked what Marvel did with it. And, it was a great setup, not only for the future Captain America movies, but also for the Avengers, which I believe was the next movie after this one in the MCU. So, you can watch this movie and still like be like, yeah, America,
Yeah.
good job.
What did Spielberg say? Like, Nazis are always the best villain because nobody feels bad if you kill a bunch of them.
Pretty much.
True.
So, yeah, when all else fails, you don't have any bad guys. you
Yeah.
just
What
put a bunch
about
of
that
Nazis
at the
in.
end when Nick Fury shows up and they got him stuck in that little
Oh,
room
in Times Square.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool how they
was
did
pretty
that
cool.
too. So.
Is this the movie where he's got the boxing bag, or was that Winter Soldier?
I believe that was Avengers.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, that's one of my favorite Captain America moments where he's sitting there, he's punching the bag, he's having all these flashbacks of World War II, and he just like knocks the bag off the beam and throws it against the wall. I'm like, yeah,
Yep.
that's cool.
I just remember watching all like the Iron Man and Thor movies and stuff like that, and getting those little hints of like the future team up, and then we finally get the Avengers, and you're just like, yeah.
MCU, it's a good group. Of
Like they
movies.
really know a lot about setting up things up and paying them off. You know?
It's your favorite thing ever.
That's because it's correct. It's the correct way to do it.
Yeah.
we can talk about this later, but man, think about the logistics of this MCU stuff.
Oh, it's insane.
It's like 20 movies, right?
Yeah, 23, I think, total.
And it's like they all
We're
flow.
going to have to take a whole full month.
Oh,
it.
for sure. And they
Yeah.
all flow together like they're supposed to. It's just like, it was great.
Yeah,
love it.
A few little missteps.
He has a
here
hard
and
time
there.
watching 3 movies. You
I
imagine you're like,
know.
all right, it's time to watch the MCU. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen everyone in the theater. I dragged my wife to everyone.
there you go.
And she hates me for it. Still.
You have to rewatch all of them.
Yeah,
It's no problem.
cool. Well, now we know.
Yeah.
I can't really think of like a maybe Captain Marvel, but like a MCU movie that was just like beyond redemption. You know, like something that like I'd hate to watch again.
I could watch Captain Marvel again. It wasn't as terrible as everybody's
It was a
thinking
very
it was.
mediocre
Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah, it
good,
wasn't great, but I think I got far too much.
I can
hate.
watch it for the show.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in to the Salty Nerd Podcast. We really appreciate it. If you guys want to listen to more podcasts, you can go to saltynerdpodcast.com. That will take you to the whichever podcasting service that you use, whether it's iTunes and or Google Play. And leave us a 5-star review, and you will get something in the mail.
But you have to let us know that
Yeah,
you
you
did
do
it.
have to let us know because I don't really check my reviews very often. So
we need their contact information so they can get the goodie bag.
this is true. You
Yeah.
can either contact us on Twitter at salty_nerd, or you can get in touch with me. Just email us, saltynerdpodcast@gmail.com. Send an email, say, hey, I sent you a 5-star review. Can you send me some stickers? And you will get a return response.
Yeah, we're going to check though. So don't give us any fake email.
Yeah, don't be.
Get the sticker.
There's that whole fake email sticker scam going around right now.
Yeah, because people really want those 9-cent stickers, man. I'll tell you what. No, it's we really appreciate the support, guys. And any comments, criticism, if you want to check us on something that you don't like, let us know. Maybe we can make some adjustments to make the podcast even better. We don't care.
I'm
Just,
sorry I said that Zachary Levi and John Krasinski were the same person. Sorry.
how dare you?
Fuck,
We're
I'm
always
sorry.
evolving.
Kick Jude off the podcast.
She's such a poser.
Hashtag not a real nerd.
All right, real quick, where can we find everybody on the socials? Matt Vader, where can they find you?
Where can they find me? Twitch, Matt Vader 74, Twitter. Parler is starting to fire up a little bit.
Oh yeah, I started an account today.
Yeah. So, YouTube, Parler, Twitch, Twitter,
It's all the same.
Instagram. It's all Matt Vader 74.
There you go.
So yes, please come hook me up there.
All right, Jude, where can they find you?
At I am Juju on the socials and at Salty Nerd Video on YouTube.
There you go. And Matthew Kadish, author extraordinaire, where can they find you?
Just Matthew Kadish, Kadish, on all these social platforms.
All right, everybody.
He's everywhere.
He's everywhere. Have a great night, guys.